Usiani como our channel so age politics avenue. Podcast also trendy up. Meko is making headlines na jumbe na idibi exumu. Ni dimnya ho braximu. Me shock say yonko political how is na. Unia South African president or South African president Cyril Ramaphosa ninsira hwa nka oye se nka obebagan ha see next Wane His Excellency John Dramani Mahama ababidi nkomo efa xenophobic attack ekoso ewo South Africa no onia na enkra yatia yedibi exumu ene se His Excellency John Dramani Mahama a rejected state visit na onia yajemre na yedibi exumu na meso se imunram na yenji insiminu details age politics up.
Now, Ghana has declined a planned state visit by South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, citing growing concerns over xenophobic attacks in South Africa. The decision comes in the wake of the death of 40-year-old Bashiru Isaac, a Ghanaian national who authorities say was killed during demonstrations linked to renewed anti-foreigner violence on June 30th, 2026. President Ramaphosa had been expected to visit Ghana in the first week of August in a trip meant to strengthen bilateral relations between the two countries. But government sources say the current security climate makes such high-level engagement premature, with the safety of Ghanaians in South Africa now taking priority. Ghanaian officials say Isaac was shot and killed during anti-immigrant demonstrations in Cape Town's township. And government has since lodged a formal protest with South African authorities over his death and the wider safety concerns facing Ghanaian nationals there. However, South Africa has pushed back on Ghana's account of events. Justice Minister Mamoloko Kubayi says no deaths were recorded during the June 30th demonstrations, describing Ghana's claims as factually incorrect and accusing Ghanaian authorities of spreading false information that unfairly brands the Rainbow Nation as xenophobic. Diplomatic disagreement has introduced fresh tensions into a relationship built on decades of cooperation in trade, investment and regional affairs, with Ghana now pressing for stronger protections for its citizens abroad as both nations attempt to manage the fallout. Tad, we will have a conversation with our diplomatic affairs correspondent Martin Date on this subject matter. But as you know, Ghana will not be the only country responding this way. As far as South Africa's position on anti-foreign protests is concerned. Now, as you very well heard from that intro earlier, this visit was planned for August, which has been in the works before the protests in South Africa leading to the death of one Ghanaian. We already know that the Ghanaian government has brought home hundreds of Ghanaians who voluntarily left South Africa, left their lives behind over fears for their lives because of these protests. The South African demonstrators or anti-foreign demonstrators had given, foreigners, African nationals to be specific, up to June 30th to leave the country or face consequences. Leading up to that, we heard about the death of Bashiru Isaac. We have subsequently been told that it's not connected with Afrophobic attacks in South Africa. But of course, the Ghanaian government has already made its position known on how Ghanaians were being treated and essentially, or by extension, how Africans have been treated in South Africa over the last few weeks or several weeks. Now, the Ghanaian government has taken an even bolder decision declining that visit from Cyril Ramaphosa, who's president of South Africa. We also know that countries like Mozambique have also taken action, driving away some South Africans who live in the country. South African artists could not get shows to perform art in places within the southern Eastern African region. So there have been consequences, and Ghana is the latest to punch in a consequence by declining that state visit from the presidency of South Africa, from the office of Cyril Ramaphosa. Now, the South African government has not had any concrete response to the anti-foreign protests. It has downplayed it over and over again. As the consequences start to stream in, it would appear that it's walking back on some of its downplay, but a little too late and a little too little too late. Now, when we get our diplomatic affairs correspondent, we'll bring back the story. In the meantime, let's try our diplomatic affairs correspondent again. Martin Esiedudate is joining us on this latest development. First, Martin, if you can hear me, let's talk about this story and how government is responding to the visits of Cyril Ramaphosa to this country. What else are you learning?
Yes, so committee, our information indicates that, yes, there has been a request by the South African authorities through the president to visit Ghana on a state visit. And a state visit is actually the highest profile welcome that a foreign president is accorded. When that request came in, our sources indicate that the government of Ghana immediately wrote back to the South Africans indicating a decline of that request, because of the recent resurgence of the xenophobic attacks. And this is actually quite important, and it brings into sharp focus the recent killing of a Ghanaian, one Bashiru Isaac, a 40-year-old Ghanaian in South Africa. The concern really is not just about the death of that Ghanaian, but it had been building up following the fact that a few months ago, when the xenophobic concerns started coming up, Ghana immediately reported South Africa to the African Union Commission, asking that the mother body take some stringent action to draw South Africa's attention to the fact that African citizens in South Africa are coming under attack. The South African government, from the perspective of not just Ghana, but Nigeria, Malawi, Mozambique, believe that the South African government is pussyfooting and not taking any strong, decisive action against the attacks of their citizens in South Africa. So on the back of that, Ghana declined the request. And that's not the only major action Ghana has taken. I recall that just last month, getting to the end of July, getting to the end of June, some 7 envoys who are diplomats and representatives of other countries presented their letters of credence to President John Mahama. But the South African representatives' request to be a part of those who were being received as ambassadors was declined. So that was the first initial step Ghana took within the precincts of Ghana to let the South Africans know that we appreciate the diplomatic relationship we have, but we do not agree with recent developments and the actions being taken by the South African government. So yes, the South African ambassador's request to be welcomed formally into the country was declined. So 7 other countries went through that process. And following the recent issues of the death, the government has told the president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, that until some major action is taken, we are sorry, but we feel the anger in the country following the voluntary repatriation of Ghanaians from SA into Ghana is still palpable, and that if we welcome you into our country, there's a likelihood that your safety may not be guaranteed. So until that tension dies down or those concerns are well addressed, we cannot give you or guarantee your safety when you come into the country. Hence, the decline of the request by Cyril Ramaphosa to come into Ghana.
Very well, Martin. You stay on the line for me. I'll bring in now international relations analyst Dr. Yao Gebe, who's joining us via telephone for a bit more on this story. Doc, very bold step by the Ghanaian government, correct?
Thank you very much. It is unfortunate that the South African government is not treating this particular issue, the issue of xenophobic attacks, killing the Ghanaians, they are not taking it seriously. I'm of the view that the government of Ghana has reacted positively to this particular development. I wish that Ramaphosa actually feedback with his cabinet and think about what is really happening and the repercussions for diplomatic relations with the rest of Africa, particularly other governments.
Dr. Gebe, did I lose you?
Pardon me?
I'm glad you're still here. Now, I want us to talk about the significance of this. You tell us that, look, this should send a signal to the South African government as far as the Afrophobic attacks in that country is concerned. But you recall that this will not be the first move that the Ghanaian government has taken against South Africa since recent attacks began in that country. How significantly are you hoping that this would drill down the message to the South African government?
Thank you. I would have wished that it doesn't come to this extent. The South African government would say completely. In the middle of all that is happening, the killing of Ghanaians, all the attacks, for the president of South Africa to decide that he pays a state visit to Ghana, I find it rather unfortunate, meaning that they are not taking the issue seriously. When the people are attacking Ghanaians, other people, and to the extent that they are even killing, I would have wished that.
Senior, they must say it means you are doing a very good job. Keep it up. So it means you are doing a very good job.
Thank you very much.
So, you see, this is a very serious issue. If you ask me, I think this issue is not about Hanan. For me, I think this issue is something bigger than Hanan himself. I think this conversation is one about our constitution and our fidelity to the constitution. Understand that the MPP as they stand now and their members, some of their members, because of the way they've handled some issues, because of the way they've shown lack of fidelity to our constitution, it is very easy to drive a narrative that seeks to hang them. But I think we ought to understand that politics is not personal, and our fidelity must always be to our constitution, irrespective of who is at the other end. And so, in spite of the extent to which some members of the New Patriotic Party and the manner in which the party itself sat aloof for the government they sponsored to show lack of fidelity to our constitution, we should never deviate from our desire to continuously stay faithful to our constitution. Because in 1992, all of us came together and agreed that the best way in which we can protect our lives, our right to our lives, the best way in which we can protect our rights to our liberties, the best way in which we can protect our right to pursue our own happiness is under a system that is governed by the constitution, and to adopt for ourselves a democracy which was constitutional in nature, that is limiting the powers of state. And to that end, we had a constitution that deliberately separated the powers of government and then gave to the judicial powers to make orders. I think you've noted the issue is where a court has given an order, and yet the order here was not just to give leave. The court actually ordered that Hanan's passport be granted him and that he be allowed to travel for a number of days for medical checkup. Yeah. To the fact that he was going outside the country just for an eye issue. It's even an indictment on us. If politicians feel that for just their eye, they don't trust any hospital in Ghana, he has to go outside, it's a problem. But that's beside the point. The point is, like you rightly said, does the AG have the powers, in spite of the clear orders of the court, you understand, to arrest Hanan? I think for me that's the issue. The reasons about whether some accounts were frozen or they were not frozen is, for me, it's neither here nor there, because I think there are also the case you mentioned is just one case, but there are also authorities that suggest that the fact that an action has been seized, yes, that does not vacate an order of the court, a freezing order of the court. The circumstances will always what's called dictate that, and the terms of the order itself. You understand? But having said that, my personal view is that where an order of the court still exists, where that order has not been vacated, you understand? Where no step has been taken to procure an order that will stay execution of that order, where that order has not been varied, then also based on the principle that justice must not only be done, it must manifestly be seen to be done. I feel that it was wrong for the AG to have taken a step Eddie took, because like I'm saying, right now, because of the extent to which the MPP has sunk low, it's so easy to support any bid to hang them. But part of the reset agenda also includes a renewal of our commitment to our constitution. I think is a huge part of it. Because I've said here on so many times that I believe that the MPP in the past were a threat to the rule of law. Understand? Now, because of all that, I think the easiest thing for you to do right now is to sidestep the call for us to be faithful to our constitution in attack of anybody of the MPP stock. But like I'm saying, our focus always must be to stay faithful to our constitution, irrespective of who is at the end of it. Because clearly, like I'm saying, does the executive have the power? Does the executive have the power to truncate a clear order of the judiciary where steps have not been taken, like I said, to either vacate, to vary, or to stay execution? And the answer ought to be no. Ought to be no because of our general good. So for me, I see this issue more of a constitutional one, more of a call for us to show fidelity to our constitution, irrespective of who. Because I understand they are going to court today. But as it stands, that order of the court still exists. There's still an order of the court. An order of the court that says that Hanan's passport should be released to him. Yeah. An order from the court that says that Hanan should be allowed to travel. I do not know. Maybe if there is, I'm sure Hamza will bring all those issues up. If there's a state of execution, I do not know. I do not know if there's been.
We and some of the team course watcher and so I'm not so dear, that's an